Alrighty, guys. Alright, good evening everybody, and welcome back to Walks in Wall Street. Today is Sunday, July 30th, 2023. It's about 8:50 p.m. and it's a pretty nice night here in New York. We have a gorgeous view of the Empire State Building. We are starting off tonight's live stream right outside of the brand new Moynihan Train Hall. Here you can get the Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, and the Amtrak, as well as the subway. Gorgeous view of the Empire State Building. But not only that, if you look all the way in the distance, just to the right of the Empire State Building, you'll actually see Madison Square Garden. Now, what I think we're going to do tonight, since it is Sunday, it is the Markets a Look Ahead live stream, where we'll go day by day, Monday through Friday, breaking down the major events that are going to be happening this week on the street. Now, what's important, I think, what we should do before we start is quickly recap and drill down on what happened last week. We'll just be very brief, but I think that's important to understand so we can make sense of what's going to happen the week ahead coming up. Now, last week was a major week, probably one of the most important weeks of July on the street. We heard from the Federal Reserve. So we have a new tone and a new precedent as it relates to monetary policy. The Federal Reserve and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell on Wednesday decided to raise interest rates by 25 basis points. The new Fed funds target rate for short-term lending is now in a range of 5.25% to 5.5%. Now, many economists and analysts on Wall Street believe that this is the peak, and this is where the Federal Reserve will quote-unquote pause. Many are viewing that, once we go to 5.5%, which we're there now, that's going to be it for the Federal Reserve. Now, it's important if you look at the trajectory of the CPI, and I believe, once again, if you type CPI in the chat, or I'll actually do you one better, I'm going to go ahead and post the link in the chat. It's a perfect infographic of where we've been as it relates to inflation, comparing it to where we are now. So in the United States, inflation topped out in June of 2022, right at around 9.1%. You fast forward an entire year to June of 2023, inflation is down all the way to 3%. Now, the Federal Reserve and Fed Chair Jerome Powell has been very clear that they will not end or conclude their aggressive quantitative tightening cycle unless inflation comes back down to that 2% target. Now, I think they're making progress. However, as we've reviewed to the point of ad nauseum on the stream, there's a few specific categories that are bucking the trend, so to speak. Number one being shelter costs, number two being food costs. Now, shelter is just starting to roll over. If you click the link that I put in the chat, you deselect all the other items and only select shelter. You'll see that in March of 2023, we could have, very possible, put in a top for the shelter category in March of 2023. Shelter came in at 8.2%. If you fast forward to the latest reading we had, which was the previous month, June 2023, shelter is coming down to about 7.8% so far. I think that's a trend that we need to watch. So as we head into August, it's very important for us to pay attention to a lot of the housing data that is coming out, both from the commercial real estate side as you think about multifamily and office, and as it relates to single-family homes for resales and single-family homes for new home sales. Now, as we've said before, if we do see a substantial easing as it relates to rental prices in the United States and housing prices in the United States, we could very well be dealing with a deflationary problem in the U.S. as opposed to the inflationary one. So that's very important to keep in mind. Lastly, The past week on Wall Street, we had some very notable earnings reports, which should carry into this week. As a little bit of a review, we heard from Alphabet, which beat on both the top and the bottom line. Microsoft also beat on the top and the bottom line. If we fast forward to this week, I think the two most notable earnings reports that are going to be coming up is undoubtedly our good friend Tim Cook at Apple. They will be reporting later in the week as we move through. That's going to be on Thursday, August 3rd, as well as our good friend over at Amazon. Now, when Amazon reports, that is going to conclude I would say the trifecta of major cloud computing, right? When you think about cloud computing, you think about AWS, which is an Amazon product. You think about Azure, which is a Microsoft product. And then last but not least, you think about Google Cloud. Now, what was most impressive to me, which we've talked about last week, is the profitability, right? If you think about this time last year, Google Cloud lost over $500 million in this quarter alone last year. Now, operating income is positive and profitability is positive. So that's going to be very important to note. It is Sunday night, so we will go ahead and take a look at futures. If you have your Bloomberg terminal up, MarketSmith, or TradingView, if you type in ticker symbol ES, that is the E-mini futures contract on the S&P 500. We opened about 30 minutes ago, and the market is about flat. We're up about 4 points on the S&P, trading at 4,610. If we go over to the NASDAQ 100, ticker symbol NQ, that is the E-mini futures contract for the NASDAQ 100. We're also about flat, up about 20 points, trading at 15,868. And last but not least, we're going to go ahead and check in on our good friend, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, or the Dow 30, ticker symbol YM for the futures for the Dow. That is also about flat, up about 9 points, trading at 35,600 even. While we have the terminal up, we might as well take a look at crude oil futures. Crude oil has actually been on a pretty decent rally. If you go back to June 30th of 2023, crude was actually trading at $67 a barrel. At the time of doing this video, July 30th, we've rallied all the way to about $80 a barrel. I'm sure you will be seeing some notable differences at the pump. We are now also trading back above the key 200-day, 50-day, and 100-day moving averages. Last but not least, we'll go to cnbc.com/bonds. Once again, if you guys want to follow along, cnbc.com/bonds, we're going to take a look at the yield curve as it relates to U.S. Treasuries. As of right now, the 1-month Treasury yield is yielding 5.403%. We'll take a look at the classic 10-2 spreads. 10-year U.S. Treasury is yielding 3.981%. The 2-year is up, yielding about 4.902%. And then that, that 1-year Treasury yield that we look at most notably is just under 5.5%, 5.414%, which is pretty good. I mean, if you want to go to Treasury Direct and purchase a 1-year Treasury, that's a 5.5% risk-free rate of return. Pretty substantial. And lastly, we might as well take a look at the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So according to Bankrate.com, for the week of July 28th, the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage in the United States is 7.27%. We are back above that 7 handle. So team, I'm going to go ahead and close up the laptop. We are going to be heading towards Lincoln Center tonight, which is a gorgeous neighborhood here in Manhattan. I'll say hello to everybody in the chat, and we'll get the stream started. Hopefully you all had a wonderful weekend. You are well rested, so we could hit the ground running come Monday. All right, team, let me go ahead and clip the microphone on. Hopefully you guys could hear me. All right, let's say hello to everybody. I think that's the most important thing we need to do. I see Christine is here, the one and only British Gray. Welcome from Tampa, Florida. Sunshine After Rain is here, Big Task at Hand. Shane, welcome. Good to see you. I see Jay Alberts. D is here, John123. The one and only Sparks Carnival is joining us. I see Steph UH. Life, Liberty, and Guns. That's one of my favorite YouTube taglines, if you will. Always love seeing that one in the chat. Spencer is here, says hello, everybody. The infamous Gary Carpenter. Now this is looking towards the Hudson Yards. It is a beautiful night here in Manhattan. I see Tim G, Sally, Spencer, Abby1, the one and only Razzle Dazzle 786. Always a pleasure seeing you. Hopefully you had a phenomenal weekend in Manhattan. And Razzle Dazzle is actually a new New Yorker. We've officially recruited her about, 6 months ago now from the West Coast? Although I'm headed over to the West Coast, not to, I should say, our favorite moderators here. This is Tom, how was your day? I had a really good day. The good thing is late last night, we had a mini, I would say impromptu rainstorm here in Manhattan, which really cooled things down. I think it was a high of 77 degrees was the reading in Central Park today, but the sun was out full blast, bang on full blast sun. So it felt like 80, but it was really nice. Hopefully you had a good day as well. Colton Manning is here. What's up? Says, hey, Tom. You know what? Lila, good to see you. UniJ23, thank you for joining us. I got to tell you guys something, okay? As we're walking towards the one and only Madison Square Garden, over the last 2 live streams, we have been very, very steadfast in talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics. And I shared with you all yesterday that video about Sweetgreens. I'm not sure if we have any Sweetgreen fans in the chat, but if you type !sweet, S-W-E-E-T in the chat, for those of you who did not have the pleasure of joining the live stream yesterday, I want you to go ahead and watch that video, because this is a video of the first fully automated kitchen and assembly line for Sweetgreen. And I think this exact process is going to be duplicated across many of the QSR restaurants. I know that Sparks Carnival was briefly talking about Chipotle. That is a publicly traded company under the ticker symbol CMG. Now imagine the operational efficiencies that could happen here, guys, should the vast majority of QSR restaurants implement some of this process, right? I think what's actually going to happen is you're going to see companies selling this process on a subscription service. It could be, fully automation as a service. So definitely watch for that. But the reason why I bring it up is because I actually went to a restaurant tonight. It is a brand new restaurant that just opened here in Midtown Manhattan. I forget the name of it, and I feel so bad about it that I'm actually going to walk past the restaurant tonight. As you guys know, I am horrible with names. I'm like the worst person ever at remembering things. But it is an amazing sushi restaurant in New York City's Koreatown. It's phenomenal, okay? I had a really good time going there. And it is fully automated. There's no servers. There's barely any employees. There's about, maybe a couple greeters that sort of greet you as you come in. But the place is really, really nice. Now, the order process is you order on iPads, right? So you sit down at the bar, everybody has an iPad, and you place your order fully on the tablet. Now, once you place your order, your food comes to you on a conveyor belt, which is just unbelievable. So I wanted to go there because we were having these conversations about AI, automation, and the customer experience was just phenomenal. I mean, everything was super instantaneous, very lightning fast. And when you want to pay the bill, You don't even have to call a server over or anything. All you do is you tap the button on the iPad and you pay right there. It is absolutely phenomenal. So I forget the name of the restaurant, so I'm going to take you guys there now. I believe it's on 31st Street and 5th Avenue. So if you're visiting New York, or maybe you just moved here and you want to try an interesting, fun place that actually has really good food, you got to try that sushi restaurant, which we will walk past today. Hey, Moonstar's here. Says, after watching the Sweetgreens video last night, one surprise to see. Oh, one is opening in Bloomington, Indiana. Okay, cool. So one of them is actually opening in your neck of the woods. Yeah, I mean, you know, if you want to get super nerdy with the finances, right? You know, they have it down to a process. I'm sure many of you have gone into Chipotle, ordered a steak bowl or a chicken bowl, and you may have been upset because they were skimping on the rice, they were skimping on the chicken. But then you always get that one guy or girl, you're like, oh, they're gonna hook me up. You know, that costs the company money, right? Not being a buzzkill, but this is a financial channel, so we're talking about the finances here. So the automation, the robots never make a mistake, okay? If the recipe is supposed to be a quarter cup of chicken, that's exactly what's gonna go in your bowl should you have a robot preparing your order. So if you think about, let's rewind about 2 weeks ago on Walks in Wall Street when we were talking about the thesis of robotics, machine learning, and AI, increasing gross margins across the field in corporate America. I mean, think about it. The slippage, I guess you can call it, or the shrinkage of, you know, maybe food waste. We almost passed Billy Joel. Oh, that would have been a mortal sin. I was about to say venial sin. Talking about a mortal sin here. Billy Joel, Madison Square Garden is the center of the universe as far as I'm concerned. It's as far as I'm concerned as well, honestly. And I think this year is going to be Billy Joel's last year in the Garden, which is a little bit upsetting. Not gonna lie. Hopefully I'll be able to go there. Yeah, photos around New York says Chipotle is pretty unique because they are all run by corporate and they aren't run by franchises. Battery Graham says, I would like a robot to clean my bathroom. I think that you could actually probably schedule that or arrange that. Username Schmoosernames is part of the allure of Chipotle is if you want extra rice, they'll give it to you. That is true. That is definitely true. Moonstar says, yes, I always try to hit up at Chipotle when there's a newbie behind the counter because they'll definitely give you extra guac. Yeah, I mean, so if you think about it, you know, not to sort of hammer on this subject 3 nights in a row, but I think it's very important because when you think about the possible expansion in gross margin, the expansion in profitability, I always think back to the very famous Peter Lynch, not really speech that he gave, but he was speaking, I believe, in front of Congress, I think. I forget exactly what it was. I think it was on C-SPAN. But Peter Lynch says, if you look back throughout history, corporate profits in America, on average, go up about 8% a year, right? So if corporate profits in the United States go up 8% a year, the market, talking about the S&P 500, right, the major indice, the market ought to double every 8 to 12. So as you think about these new technologies, I'm trying to get you guys a shot of the Billy Joel advertisement here, but unfortunately there's this Pixel Fold advertisement here. Hopefully Billy Joel will pop up anytime now. But if you think about the increase in corporate profits in America, there's many analysts, right, and there's been many equity research pieces that I've actually read this weekend of analysts being very negative on the outlook of corporate profits in America, right? Now, maybe for a good reason, but if you think about the quote that we briefly said yesterday, that people severely overestimate what can be done in the short term, and severely underestimate what can be done in the long term. This is exactly my thesis on AI. I think a lot of people are going to get caught off guard, and not just AI, robotics, essentially increasing operational efficiencies in a business. I think people are going to get really, really caught off guard with just how much juice, so to speak, is going to hit the bottom line of these companies. So, we'll take a walk over there, and I'll show you guys the restaurant. I would highly advise you to check it out, and it's a fun experience too. It's a cool user experience to see the sushi flying in and out on the assembly line. It's really cool. Hey, I see Richard Vogel is here, my good friend Austin City Limits. Thank you for being here. Ed T says Billy Joel songs are timeless. They are, man. He's one of my favorite musicians of all time. He's a New York icon and a New York legend. So hopefully, before he says farewell to doing live shows, if you will, at Madison Square Garden, maybe I'll be able to get to see him. Who knows? NBA Elias' gasoline prices hit 8-month highs with no relief in sight. I hope this does not crimp consumer spending. NBA Elias, that's interesting you point that out. Futures just open, right? It's about 9 o'clock at night. Take a look at crude oil futures right now. If you go back to June 30th, so maybe about a month ago, almost exactly a month ago, we actually just went the wrong way. We got to turn around. Well, I guess first I'll show you we'll get an update on the 2 Penn project. This is a Vornado project, but it's actually on hold right now because of vacancy rates in the city are so high as it relates to commercial real estate. The office space here at Penn 2 is actually on pause. However, they are charging ahead with completely redoing and redeveloping Penn Station. But, to go back to your point, NBA Elias, crude oil has actually been on a pretty nice rally here. For a brief moment in time in June, crude broke below $70 a barrel, trading at about 68 bucks. Now we're trading at 80, okay? We're trading at $80. Now the question is this rally sustained? Well, I don't know. If you look at all the major moving averages on crude, if you look at the 200, the 50, and the 100, price action is trading back above all 3 of those major moving averages. Now, could this just be due to summer demand, right? Usually summer is very high for travel. We'll see. Maybe the zero COVID policy ending in China, we're finally starting to see a little bit of a pickup. We'll actually get some updates on that this week as the China PMIs come out. This is a gorgeous shot of the Empire State Building, right outside of the brand new 2 Penn project. Hey, Hawaii's here. What's up, Hawaii? Good to see you. Edward Adams says, hola, Tom and all in the chat. I'm late. Where are we going to tonight, ultimately? So we are actually going to head all the way uptown, guys. We are going to go to Lincoln Center. Lincoln Center is so beautiful. It's so gorgeous. It is such an iconic staple to this city. And I think it's very underexplored. And that is where we're going to go tonight. But first, I got to take you guys to this restaurant because I feel bad I didn't remember the name. Now, if you want to see some videos of sort of what it looks like, you can just go to my IG page, because I think it's important for market research purposes, right? That's one of the things we learned from Peter Lynch is you should always be paying attention to new trends. You should just follow your kids around. Whatever the kids are interested in, usually those will be the new trends, if you will. And I think one of the biggest things we're seeing now is automation in processes at QSR places, like quick service restaurants. Last thing I'll say about that, I actually had a conversation with TD, the one and only timekeeper, Teresa Diaz, in the chat, God bless her. And I was talking about the very, very beginnings of this trend. And it actually started with Kevin Johnson. And this is in my opinion, by the way. Many people would debate me on this, but if you want to pick a starting point for where automation increased customer experience happened in QSR restaurants, I think Kevin Johnson is the person that you need to turn to. Now, many of you may be saying, Tom, who the heck is Kevin Johnson? Well, I'll tell you. He was the former CEO of Starbucks for a period in time. And he really implemented... Oh! Are you okay? Do you need help?
It's my wife.
Oh, you okay? Hey.
Thank you.
Okay, how are we going? Yikes. Yeah, the city needs to fix the broken sidewalks here, man. I think she's good. I forgot what I was saying, but we'll go to the sushi place. We're coming up on 6th Avenue. Yeah, she's good. GGNYC, she's all right. Her husband was there to sort of help her out. Look at this. Speaking of TD, here's the TD Bank. MBLI's Kevin Johnson. Thank you, my friend. So Kevin Johnson was the former CEO of Starbucks. And there's a lot of people that actually don't think he did a really good job. I would disagree, because he really pushed for mobile order and pay. And if anybody's ordered a Starbucks coffee, I mean, all of us have, right? Especially in a major city like New York, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, or anywhere, right? LA, during rush hour, before mobile order and pay, there would be lines out the door, around the block, and the customer experience was horrible. So much so that Starbucks was losing a lot of business. But with the introduction of mobile order and pay, that was the first step towards automation, right? A lot of times the baristas would get overwhelmed in the morning. You know, if you're taking, thousands and thousands of coffee orders throughout the morning, you get things wrong, you make mistakes. But if you incorporate an electronic ordering process, the robots don't make mistakes, right? And you decrease the amount of human interaction so the baristas can focus on what they do best, which is making the product. Now, that is where the automation started. Now, if you've noticed where it's going, there's actually some pop-up Starbucks stores that are only to-go stores. They're online order only, and you pick it up at the little window. There's actually one of them by Grand Central Station or Grand Central Terminal. And if I had to make a prediction, you're going to start to see that at all of the major QSR restaurants, like McDonald's, like Burger King. I mean, any QSR, right? You're going to see that at Wingstop. You're going to see that at Chipotle. And in my view, that's going to make these companies much, much more profitable. It may be a big one-time upfront cost in terms of the CapEx, but after that, it is going to balloon the earnings. Yeah, that's also another good point. The LTU Prod says smaller store equals less rent. Sparks Carnival says disagree. What baristas do best is forming brand relationships with the customers. I think for local coffee shops, that's 100% correct, like your little mom and pop coffee shop. But I think at a big brand name, and look, I could be wrong, right? We actually got to go down this way. But I think at a big brand name, like a Starbucks, right? I just remember from my personal experiences, I'd have to be in the office at 8:30. So I would stop at a Starbucks at 8 o'clock, try to get a cup of coffee in Midtown Manhattan. And it's like a mob fest, right? You'd think you're waiting online to enter Madison Square Garden for a Rangers game. That's how crowded it is. So I think on a big scale, at those type of stores, it's all about getting the product as fast as possible and as accurately as possible to the customer in lightning speed. And I think that's what mobile order and pay has done. And then think about every other single coffee shop that's a competitor. Dunkin' Donuts, which is now just called Dunkin'. And even some of the smaller localized chains are all adopting mobile order and pay. I even think you could do mobile order and pay at Chipotle, pretty much everywhere. But it's a good point. It's a good point. Hey, Travel Size Life is here. What's up? Good to see you. Yeah, JJ, that's also a good point. JJ says not every human being is on the go all the time. Yeah, so I think, if you have that mix of both, that is the optimal customer experience, right? Now, I remember in Howard Schultz's first book, his main goal with Starbucks was not to make the best coffee. If anybody remembers reading that book, he said his goal was to make the third place. That was always the goal with Starbucks. He said the first place, well, I guess obviously pre-COVID, right? The first place was home. The second place was the office. He wanted to specialize in that third place, which would be the place in between the office and home, which I think he did a good job in doing that. I think he succeeded. All right, we got to make one more right. So we're on 5th Avenue. It's on the corner of 30th Street and 5th. So it's coming up here in a second. Hey, Steve CR is here. What's up, Steve? It's good to see you. All right, let me catch up on some of the comments while I show you guys one of my favorite views in all the city. Beautiful view of the Empire State Building here. Hey, Shannon Hall. Yeah, I don't really play the lottery. I don't. Cooking is here. What's up? Taxi cab. Ah, you're correct. That is what it's called. Now, I don't really even want to try to pronounce it because I'm just going to butcher it. Haas Manning is here. Good to see you, Haas Manning. This is good evening, Tom and everybody. Now, about 2 weeks ago, Haas Manning and I ate at the same exact restaurant, Momofuku Noodle Bar, but just an hour apart. What a coincidence that is. But I got an even better recommendation for you. That is a really, really cool, very unique place. It's right across the street here. And this is pretty much a fully autonomous sushi restaurant. Now, if you want to go here yourself, just come to the corner of West 30th Street and 5th Avenue, right at the south, I would say just about the southeast corner of Koreatown. I'll see if there's a picture of the menu in the windows. We could check it out, but this place is really cool. The majority of the employees within this restaurant are prep workers. So they're making the food, they're preparing the drinks, they're hostesses. But when you sit down, you have an iPad and you order all of the food on the tablet. And when the food is ready, it brings it to you on a conveyor belt. Super simple, super fresh, and really, really unique. So I'll try to give you guys a bird's eye view of it. Let me know if you could see. This is the back side of it, so there's no people sitting here, but these 3 tiers are the conveyor belts. You see it right here, like 1, 2, 3. So you'll have an iPad in front of you. And everything's like $4. So I ordered a ton of stuff and they slingshot it to you on the conveyor belt. It is so cool. And it felt to me like it took no time. Like I ate there in literally under 30 minutes. You know, one of the biggest, I would say, objections to going into a sit-down place is people are on the go. You know, you have to interact with the server. So I think this has the best of both worlds in a way. You have that hospitable feel, but everything is on your terms, if you will. So here it is. I just wanted to show you because we've been talking about AI and artificial intelligence and robotics. So this is the place, and please, please, please come and visit. If you're in New York City, this place is fantastic, and the food is very, very good. Okay, so let us head uptown. This is West 30th Street. We have to go all the way up to 60th Street and Broadway to see Lincoln Center. So we're going to cut right through Koreatown. I know Nakos says get a table for 1,100 people. I'm down. But yeah, I mean, interesting things like that are so cool, and I think that's what makes New York, New York. Now I'll ask this: would anybody? Because maybe that's not for everybody. Maybe somebody would say, look, I don't want to go out to eat at a restaurant if I'm just going to have to order from an iPad and they bring the food to me on a conveyor belt. Are people looking for that? I mean, would that be a deterrence to anybody? I don't know. I'm trying to keep an open mind here. I think with my personality, I would like that a lot sometimes. But I think if I'm going to be going out to dinner with like a client or something, maybe I would want a more like full service experience, I think. I don't know. Wendy England says you'd rather make food at home. Yeah, I mean, in New York, it's, I think I could speak for all New Yorkers that very seldom do New Yorkers actually cook at home. Yeah, Bill says I would rather have the personal interaction personally. Yeah, Sparks Carnival says nobody cooks in New York City. UnaJ23 says sometimes. Yeah, Hawaii is like, I'll cater sushi for my 1:30 William housewarming party. I'm down. When that materializes, I'm there. 100% all day, every day. Now this is the main street, I should say, in Koreatown, which is 32nd and 5th. In my opinion, one of the best Korean barbecue spots is right here on the corner. No, not to love Korean barbecue, even though that is good. But my favorite one is right here. It's called Baekjung. Now, it is expensive. I'm going to warn you, it is expensive, but I'd say it's good for corporate outings, right? Let's say if you're a manager somewhere and you have 5 to 7 people on your team. If you take your team here for like a corporate outing, they're going to love you for that. It's New York City's #1 Korean barbecue. It's called Baekjung. And you have absolutely stunning views of the Empire State Building. It's quite literally like you're eating under the Empire. It's fantastic. Hey, Isabella Mars, is this idea any different? I don't know what that means. Hey, Dan Sang says, Tom, have you ever been to Northern Boulevard in Flushing? The amount of Korean restaurants there will blow your mind. You know, I don't think so, actually. You know, I've probably been there, yes. But have I eaten there? I have not. So you're saying Northern Boulevard in Flushing, Queens is filled with Korean restaurants. I would not think that. Now, I know that Flushing, Queens is a bigger Chinatown than the Chinatown in New York, in Manhattan. Or I should say the city. But I didn't know they had a lot of Korean restaurants. That is news to me. Is there any in particular that you would recommend? Should I go there? Or should I have the opportunity to go there? There's a ton of really good Korean spots here near Koreatown. My favorite ones are actually not on 32nd Street, by the way. Almost all of my favorite, I should say, Korean restaurants or spots are on 31st Street. Take 31 and Her Name is Han are probably my 2 favorite. All right, now this is West 33rd Street and 5th Avenue. And this is actually the Empire State Building. We're literally walking right past it right now. There's a Walgreens in the basement. And speaking of Starbucks, right, mobile order and pay, there's actually one of their reserve roasteries in the northeastern side of the building. This is where you would go in for the observation deck, 350 Fifth Avenue. But this is actually one of the specialty locations, right? So Starbucks, ticker symbol SBUX. This is actually a 2-floor, so sort of like a duplex setup, Starbucks Reserve Roastery. Now, the bottom floor is all the pastries. They have like Italian pizzas. They have everything you could imagine. They have coffees. But on the second floor, it's actually a bar. Now, I don't drink alcohol, but I went up there, and it is so cool. Now, everything in here is very expensive. You're sort of paying for the location, you're paying for the brand name, but it's a cool experience being in here. Hey, Dan Sanks is 49.3 on China PMI. Yeah, I mean, Ryan Beck, it's good to see you first and foremost. Hopefully you have had a fantastic weekend. Let's actually cross, sort of get away from the people here. But yeah, Ryan Beck, good point. The PMI numbers are extremely, extremely important, and it is that time of, almost that time of the month, right? So China PMI is coming out, and on the first business day of the month, which I believe is going to be August 1st, we're going to get the Institute for Supply Management PMI numbers for the United States. And this is probably one of the best leading economic indicators that we can go off of. Because if you think about how the economy is broken down, 20% of the entire US economy is manufacturing. The other 80% is services. So I think on August 1st is when we're going to get the manufacturing PMIs, and then I think August 7th, is when we are going to get the services PMIs. Now, I have a question for Ryan Beck, my good friend from Texas. My question is this. MBA Elias in the chat pointed out that crude oil is on a tear and gasoline prices are on the rise yet again. But if you go back to June 30th, that is when crude oil briefly broke below $70 a barrel. I think it traded at $68. Now we're trading at $80. Could this be, or could the China PMIs be sort of telling us that this recovery that everybody's been anticipating, right from the zero COVID policy concluding, maybe it's just getting a late start? Because here's how I think about it. And many of you are more well-versed in China than me. Some of you are actually from China and have family there. I think it's hard. I think it's hard to say that China is having a robust reopening if you don't have crude oil prices to follow. Does that make sense? Because if the economy's booming over there and everybody's out and about traveling, buying vehicles, you would think that would increase the demand for crude, and thus prices would rise. So maybe it was just a delayed recovery? I don't know. Thoughts there? This is an awesome shot of the Empire State Building from East 36th Street and 5th Avenue. Dave D is here. What's up, Dave? This looks like Japan just announced that they're buying back 5 and 10-year bonds. Yeah, the Bank of Japan, the BOJ, is just, I mean, it's wild what's going on, right? In super, super stark contrast from what's going on in central banks all over the world. Not only the Federal Reserve, but central banks globally have been in a massive quantitative tightening cycle, while the Bank of Japan just keeps, the artificial rate suppression going, which is kind of crazy. ETS says, hey Tom, did you get a chance to look at the correlation between the 10-year Treasury and the 30-year mortgage? Well, I know that, let me get out of the street here. I don't know why I walked in the street. Maybe I'm like a moth. I'm attracted to the light. Wherever there's light, I just go towards the light. Now, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is very, very correlated to the 10-year, right? And that's why at the beginning of the live streams, we'll always talk about the bond market, right? There is a very high correlation between the movement in the 10-year US Treasury and mortgage rates. So if the 10-year is higher, generally speaking, the 30-year fixed is probably going to be higher and vice versa. But if you're talking about the Tom Lee prediction from the other day, I didn't get a chance to look at that. I didn't get a chance to look at the interview that he did. He probably wrote about it on Fundstrat's website, which I actually have access to. But no, I mean, what did he say about it specifically? I mean, you would know more than me if you saw it. But hey, Sarah is saying hello from the UK. Good to see you, Sarah. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Bob Smith says, what's your general background? Only caught a few parts of your streams, but it's pretty interesting so far. Thank you, Bob. I come from the tech world. So I spent about a decade in tech and telecom sales. Most recently as an enterprise sales director for a major managed service provider. Yeah, Carl Roth says you got to have a lot of money in treasuries to beat the mortgage return. What do you mean by that? To beat the mortgage return? Well, I think, are you talking about like as an investment vehicle? Because I think what's attractive now about treasuries is you finally have a real rate of return, right? So I think there's two ways that people think about returns on the street specifically. You have your nominal rate of return, but then you also have real rates. And your real rate of return is factoring in inflation. So the most recent CPI print that we've gotten was 3%. So if you buy a 1-year treasury for 5.5%, right, roughly, I think the 1-year treasury is yielding just a tad below 5.5%. You're still beating inflation, which hasn't been the case in a long, long time in America. You know, that's where the acronym, if you guys are not familiar with the acronym, over the last decade, since the 2008 financial crisis, there's been this emergence of the term TINA, T-I-N-A, T-I-N-A. This is actually the old Lord & Taylor. For those of you who don't know, this used to be a New York icon, especially during the holidays. In my opinion, they had the best windows for the holidays, for Christmas. But TINA stands for There Is No Alternative, as it relates to owning equities, right? People would say, well, why would I ever buy a bond if I'm not going to beat inflation? I'm automatically guaranteeing myself a negative rate of return. Well, it's not the case now, actually, which is quite interesting, which I think is a good thing. Right? There's many pundits on Wall Street that would say the Federal Reserve has done too much, they've raised rates too high too fast. But I think it's good for Americans that are finally getting rewarded again for their savings. Now check this out. This is one of the, I would say, the newer New York public libraries. It is right across the street from the original, the most famous Stephen Schwarzman building. Now, Stephen Schwarzman, you guys probably know who he is. Quite obviously, when you think of Stephen Schwarzman, you could think of Blackstone. Massive, massive powerhouse on Wall Street, particularly in the real estate business. But in this library, if you come to the corner of East 40th Street and 5th Avenue, if you're interested in the financial markets, if you want amazing free resources, What I want you to do is walk through those doors right here, go to the elevator and go to the 5th floor. So 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, 5. There you'll find the International Business Center where you can have access to Bloomberg terminals for free of charge. Okay, and I think this is a very underutilized resource that a lot of native New Yorkers and even tourists don't know about. And I think they should know about that because our tax dollars are going to, funding these programs, and I think it's important that people know about it. So if you've worked on Wall Street or in consulting or really anything, right, and you've utilized a Bloomberg terminal, essentially it's a massive financial database. If you wanted to purchase one yourself, it's going to run you about $24,000 a year for just one terminal. You can use it for free anytime you want. If you come here and you go to the 5th floor, you don't even need a library card to use it. All you got to do is just sign in, first, last name, you put your email down, and then you have about an hour's worth of access. But every time I'm there using them, there's nobody on the computers, and I should say nobody on the terminal, so nobody really cares. So use it as much as you want. Now look at how cool this is, guys. In the distance, you have the Bank of America Tower, which is Brian Moynihan's company. But right here, you have the Salesforce Tower, which is a very, very famous pioneer in the SaaS space, software as a service, our good friend Mark Benioff. I would highly recommend a particular book that was written by Mr. Benioff. It is called Trailblazer. That was probably one of my favorite books. I'd say probably it's in the top 10. Trailblazer by Mark Benioff. But again, East 40th Street, 5th Avenue. This is sort of like the Bryant Park, New York Public Library area. Hey, Zane is here. This is what an awesome source. Thank you, Zane. Hey, DM. Happy Sunday. Hopefully you had a good weekend. Hopefully you're ready for tomorrow. Ooh, this is interesting. All right, let me check out Sparks Carnival's chat here. Okay, Sparks Carnival says, Tom, Microsoft claims 70% of employees want to delegate as much of their work as possible to AI. Bing Chat Enterprise and 365 Copilot now allows them to do that. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about the increase in operational efficiency that AI is going to bring about. Now, did anybody have a chance, and I think this was actually you, Sparks Carnival, who first brought this up. I think it was you. It was either you or Ryan Beck, I forget. But man, the interview with the CEO of Palantir, the most recent interview that he did talking about AI was insanity, okay? So one of the most notable points in that particular interview, for me anyway, was when the interviewer said, if we want to talk about a total addressable market or a TAM for AI, how big do you think the opportunity is? And total addressable market is, one of the main components that many investors look at, right? They're like, if I'm going to invest in a company, what is the total addressable market for this product set? And his answer was infinite. The TAM for AI is so big that we can't even comprehend how big it is. If you have not watched that interview, it's not even that long of an interview. You could breeze through it pretty quick, maybe even tonight or on Monday morning. But it was the most recent interview that the CEO of Palantir did. It was very eye-opening and very optimistic, if you will. Hey, Brad's Brain, what's up? Says Tom, Palantir is something everybody should follow if you want to learn about AI. AI is going to fundamentally change our lives. I couldn't agree with that more, my friend. Colton Manning says, what happens to those people who have those jobs that now get replaced? Well, it's a big problem. But I think a lot of people were warning about this for years. Now, I don't really like getting too political. I respect everybody's political beliefs, whether you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. I respect and appreciate you guys all the same, and you know that. But, there is a gentleman who's been pounding the table about this for years, and he was mainly laughed at by all of our guy that's standing in the street blocking traffic. That's New York. But Andrew Yang, you know, regardless of what you think about his politics, he's been warning about this, right? And I don't really agree with the vast majority of stuff he says, Mr. Yang, but I think he has a better grasp on reality and technology than the vast majority of our Republican and Democrat representation, if you will, right? Because he's an entrepreneur himself. He's actually built businesses. He knows what it takes to hire employees. He knows what it takes to pay employees, and he knows what it takes to actually build technology. So I think the important thing here, and I'm debating on whether we should walk across the street. All right, I'm gonna commit. We've committed. We're crossing Fifth Avenue. You guys got to make sure I'm on the path to Lincoln Center. I get so distracted easily. We'll make it there soon enough. We'll go to Lincoln Center soon enough. You know, but I think one of the things that people need to understand is this. Disruption has been happening for decades. It's just a different thing every time. You had the Industrial Revolution. You had the introduction of automobiles. You know, going way back, you had electricity, right? So everything is constantly being disrupted. It's just the law of slow-moving disasters, if you will. So if you could see a problem far out enough, human history and human intelligence has essentially said, I think that guy set up shop in the middle of the street, he's lounging around on his couch. Not a bad deal. You know, if you could see a problem far out enough, humans tend to adapt. The issue that I see with AI is that for every job it destroys, it's probably going to create 4 to 6 new jobs. Now that may sound like good news, but the problem is the new jobs that the AI creates is going to require a completely different set of skills. And these skills are going to be very, very hard skills. They're not going to be soft skills. So what that means is, I think countries and governments across the world are going to need to really, really double down, if not triple down, on making sure their populace is educated for a new economy. So whether that be job retraining programs, job retooling, I think that's important. So one of the ideas that could be good is if we survey the populace, and we already know the answer, by the way. There's been many studies done. There was a really good McKinsey study that was done that shows the specific sectors that are the most prone for disruption, right, or job loss. You can think about truckers and the like. Those individuals, right, that we know who are very, very susceptible to job loss from AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotics, maybe we could, instead of sending billions and billions of dollars overseas to fund wars and bombing random people, we can give it to the people to help them educate themselves to assimilate into a new society that requires new skills. I would totally want my tax dollars to go towards that, right? I would totally be in favor of that. I mean, we waste so much money doing everything else. We might as well spend it on our own people, you know, helping them get the education that they need to get high-paying jobs that are going to be created by AI. Everybody, we are now across the street from the beautiful Grand Central Station. This is the corner of East 42nd Street and Vanderbilt Avenue. Very busy night in Manhattan. I think during the summer you have so many people going out to the Hamptons, going upstate New York to, you know, Rye, New York, to Westchester County. And on Sunday nights, that's when everybody's traveling back to the city for work tomorrow. I'm feeling like a very strong energy in the city tonight. I'm not sure if you guys are feeling the same. Hey, Laytha is joining us. Good to see you. NBA Elias's web developer job and skills did not exist even 30 years ago. Yeah, I mean, think about that, right? And that is why I keep hammering on this, law of slow-moving disasters, because people always focus on the negative, right? If you haven't noticed, negativity gets way more clicks and views than being rational and telling the truth and being a normal person, right? If you can be hyperbolic and dishonest, you'll get a lot of attention. But if you want to calm everybody down and tell the truth about things, well, that's not very exciting. So to your point, my parents, when they were growing up, when they were, 18, 19 years old, they didn't even know the term software engineer. They didn't know the term solutions architect, right? Software salesman, software saleswoman. It just wasn't even a thing. So there's going to be more of that. My kids, when they grow up, there's going to be jobs that I've never heard of. So again, disruption always happens. It will always happen. But the jobs that the disruption creates is just going to require a different skill set. And that obviously takes time and money to build those skills. I love the bagpipes here. This is gorgeous. This is right outside Grand Central Station. For whatever reason, I really love the sound of bagpipes. Let's go check this guy out. Let's take a walk inside. Hey, very good, thank you. All right, we'll take a quick walk inside because it's so humid out. Oh, marron. Wow, this is really beautiful. Look at that. Well, we are now inside Grand Central Station. I think this is my personal favorite train station in New York City. Hey, LG 1963, good to see you. I know Ryan Beck's like he paused the stream for us. I always say this, but if you're coming to New York and you want to go to a very interesting bar, right through these doors and up the stairs is quite arguably the most unique bar in New York City. It's called the Campbell Bar or Campbell Apartments, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So right through those doors and up the stairs, I think there's actually some people walking up those stairs. It is really, really cool. It is expensive. I do want to just preface to say that, but I think it is well worth the while, if you will. Hey, Boza Valhalla, welcome. ETS is Tom, I agree that AI is going to cause disruption, but I think it's a little overhyped. Will AI take away the need for a plumber when a toilet needs to be repaired? No, so there's actually, I forget the name of the website. Oh, it is in that McKinsey study. Hold on, let me get out of the way of the bagpipe guy for a moment. All right, so this is directly outside of the Grand Central Station, as well as Grand Central Madison. And this is the very famous One Vanderbilt building. Look at this. This is one of the newest Class A office towers in New York City, but it is also one of the most sought after observation decks. Now, if you walk directly down the street here, you're gonna run into 270 Park Avenue. Okay, I know we have a lot of new people here, so I think this is a very notable building. 270 Park. This is our good friend Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase. This is going to be their brand new mega structure on Park Avenue. Now, they're doing a mass consolidation. They're closing down the majority of the existing office towers that JP Morgan Chase once worked out of. I think they closed down the one on Water Street in Lower Manhattan, and they're going to do a big consolidation right at the end of the block in this building, 270 Park. It is gorgeous. Now, coming up in a few years, our friend Ken Griffin from Citadel Securities, which is a quantitative hedge fund and market maker on Wall Street, he is actually going to be building a beautiful Class A office tower as well on Park Avenue and in South Florida on Brickell Avenue in Miami. Now, somebody said an interesting comment as we're walking past the Yale Club here, that they think AI is a little bit overhyped, which, yes, I think we should revert back to the quote, which essentially states, overestimate what you could do in the short term, underestimate what you could do in the long term. I think that applies here. But for jobs such as a plumber, an electrician, an HVAC mechanic, welders, those are the actual jobs that are in high demand right now and that are the least likely to be automated away by artificial intelligence. Now, the top jobs are like very monotonous, back office work, even some banking jobs, like a lot of banking jobs are very susceptible to that. But to your point, I'd say the more cumbersome and difficult, right, like a plumber or putting in a big HVAC system in a building, AI is not going to be able to do that. So that is a very, very good point. Hey, we got Pix 11 News doing the live stream here. What are they doing? Hey, Michael Joseph, what's up, man? This is Tom. AI is the fourth industrial revolution. That's not hype. It's an understatement. Good to see you, Michael Joseph. Hey, Beacon, New York. This is Tom of Irish ancestry. I am. So I'm half Irish, half Italian. The very classic and stereotypical Long Island, New York mix, Irish-Italian. Sparks Carnival says, Tom, breaking news, China's factory activity contracted for the fourth consecutive month in July, while non-manufacturing activity slowed. Now, those headlines can be a little bit misleading. Like, this is why I always say the trajectory. I think they're filming the, what's it called? The migrant hotels. I think this is one of the hotels. Now, it's more important, in my opinion, or in my view, to look at the trajectory of the PMIs, right? Because the way you interpret the PMI numbers is a reading below 50 signals contraction, a reading above 50 signals expansion. Now, I actually think that's the wrong way to look at it, in my view. What's more important, and this goes against the grain of what you're taught, even in business school, it's the trajectory, right? So if you had PMI numbers coming in at 46 and then a reading coming in at 49, the headline is going to say it contracted, but the trajectory is actually higher. So I would actually view that as a bullish signal, which I think is what happened in the case of China, actually. Maybe, I don't know. I think, what was the reading? 49? Maybe 49.50? Or 49.5 for the PMIs? So I think this is where a lot of the migrants are being bused to New York. I think this is one of the hotels. It's sad to see everybody on the street. Why? I don't understand why everybody's on the street. It's horrible. It's heartbreaking to sort of see things like that. But I believe this was one of the old hotels, if you will, that is now turned into a housing facility. Now, from just walking down that little path, in my opinion, that is not sanitary conditions to have people. There's garbage overflowing, there's waste spilling onto the street. The city should definitely not have that. Wow. I know, Sunshine NYC. I'm actually a little bit taken back. I've never really, I think we walked past this once before, but it wasn't like this. Actually really heartbreaking, man. Now, you know, seeing things like that make me have a deeper appreciation for being born in the United States and just having opportunity in and of itself. I think a lot of people take this country for granted, and you shouldn't. Because, I mean, just look at those people. The people that are laying on the sidewalk, and quite literally, I'm not being like hyperbolic, they were laying in garbage and whatnot. That's a better situation than what's in their country. So I think, you know, that says it all in and itself. So if you were born in the United States, or even in Canada, you didn't really do anything special. You were just super blessed and super lucky to be able to hit the lottery to be born in the United States. And I think that is just a reinforcement of just how appreciative, you know, I am to just be born in the US. Seriously. It's a big eye-opener. All right, this is, I just wanted to take you guys to the corner here to show you the progress on the construction of 270 Park Avenue. Oh, you'll actually see it right here. So I'll zoom in. So 270 Park, this is going to be the brand new office tower of JP Morgan Chase. And they're redoing Park Avenue. If you've noticed, they've removed the median here, and they've actually expanded the street, which looks really, really good. It's going to be much more walkable than it was before. There was tons of traffic, and it was actually a little bit awkward driving down Park Avenue and things like that. But now they've expanded the street and they've expanded the sidewalks. Hey, Gina Thomas, thank you so much for your very kind donation. I appreciate your support with the stream. If you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams starting at 8:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. We walk the city, talk about the financial markets. Saturdays, we sort of explore different neighborhoods in the city and have a nice day off. And then Sundays is our Markets a Look Ahead stream. But we need to stay on track here. I'm supposed to take you guys to Lincoln Center. We're not even close. We've been so distracted, but it's okay to get distracted. It's the summer. Nakos, Tom's, when is the next newsletter? So I have some exciting news. I've been working on a very big project, I would say for about 8 or 9 months now, which has finally come to fruition. So we're going to be on a very regimented cadence for the newsletter and a lot of other exciting things as well. That bus needs a brake job, wow. So hopefully this week I'll be able to fill you guys in on that. But I'm super, super excited about it. I'm going to be getting a really good opportunity to work with one of the most recognizable real estate developers in not only the United States, but in Italy, as well as get to work with one of the top sales teams in Manhattan. And hopefully will be helping the team expand operations to Miami. Oh, look at this. This is one of those Revel taxis. This one's a Tesla. I've yet to be inside. A Tesla taxi. That's one of the things I actually really want to do. Maybe we'll do that live one night on the stream. You know, speaking about AI, Tesla, I would even argue, is like a big data company. If you think about how much further ahead Tesla is in their autonomous driving, if you will, than many of its other competitors. Check that out. That is an awesome shot of One Vanderbilt. You know, Dan, I saw that, but you know what's crazy? Does anybody remember from our Miami live streams, there used to be all of these rental scooters all over the place, like those Lime scooters. I think the other one was Bread. I think they all went out of business. I think they all went under. I haven't seen not one in Miami. They used to be all over Austin, Texas, and they used to be all over Miami. Yeah. Now, is anybody here in the chat from Austin, Texas, by the way? Maybe you could chime in and tell us if the rental scooters are still around Austin. But I think the companies went under. I think they went out of business. Ooh, check this out, guys. Right in front of us, this is a gorgeous shot of one of the most exclusive buildings on Billionaires Row. It's 432 Park Avenue. This is Harry Maclow's building. For the love of God, this is my brothers from Dallas. Hey, Zach Drew's scooters all over San Francisco. Well, hopefully, God willing, I'll be in San Francisco at the end of the month. Well, at the end of next month. It's pretty much already August. Hey, Bob Smith says, what do you do now? What was your education? You have more knowledge than your average tech salesman. Well, I think that, you know, one of the things about tech sales, particularly software sales and telecom sales, it's not like your average sale, so to speak. So this is, and that's sort of why, you know, if you're an account executive or enterprise account executive at a big software company, right, or a big telecom company like T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, that tends to be why the pay is higher than like the average account executive in another industry, because it's a very, very complex sale, especially as you move up to enterprise, right? So the hierarchy of a sales organization, you have like an SDR or BDR, which is sales development representative or business development representative. Then you have your AEs, which are the account executives, which mainly specializes in small to medium-sized businesses. The goal is to get into enterprise sales, and that is selling to Fortune 550 and Global 2000 customers, right? Fortune 500, Fortune 50, Global 2000. Now, those deals are multi-million-dollar transactions, and oftentimes, you know, multi-million-dollar reoccurring, right, ARR transactions. So the salaries tend to be higher and the commissions tend to be extremely high because it's a very high margin business, right? Software and telecom is extremely high margin business, but it is a very complex sale, especially if you're redoing an entire MPLS network, you're selling SD-WAN, or, you know, let's say if you're selling Salesforce, right? Let's say if you're an enterprise account executive at Salesforce, to integrate a CRM across, you know, 40,000 employees and make sure it integrates with Workday, right, which is sort of like an HRS system. You know, make sure it integrates with all your order processes. It is a big job. So it's tough. I mean, the pay is good, but you really got to be on it, and I would recommend it. If somebody wants to have a really fun job where you're traveling the country, you're meeting a lot of really, really smart people, particularly a lot of smart engineers. If you're on a sales team, chances are you'll be working with an SE, which stands for Solutions Engineer. I had a blast doing it. I had a blast doing it. Ooh, we almost passed the New York Palace. This place looks absolutely gorgeous during the holidays. Now, unfortunately, just like every building in New York, it has this really ugly scaffolding all over it. But does anybody remember from our holiday live streams in New York? This courtyard is gorgeous during the winter. For Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, and Christmas, it is gorgeous in this little courtyard here. But unfortunately, you have all the scaffolding. Wow, Michael Joseph says, my grandfather worked for Bell Labs and AT&T during tech sales. Wow, very cool. NBA Elias says, Tom, bring a jacket to San Francisco. It's a little bit breezy. So I heard the climate in San Francisco is like very moderate. Sort of like a brisky fall the majority of the year, like 66, 70s. Right around there. Hey, Elijah B, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Everybody, we're walking past St. Patrick's Cathedral here. This is a gorgeous cathedral, probably one of the most famous in the world. Right to our left. We're going to walk back to Fifth Avenue. I'll show you guys the front. But I also have to tell you a very interesting story about this condominium coming up on the right-hand side, which is called Olympic Tower. Olympic Tower. Now, if you want to look it up yourself on Street Easy, the address is 641 Fifth Avenue. And it is this building right here with the doorman standing outside. Now, this is a very iconic condominium in New York, and not a lot of people know about it or sort of know the story about it. Now, in New York specifically, what was fashionable among native New Yorkers were cooperatives, or co-op apartments. Now, I would say the new New York, the real estate market has absolutely changed and done a 180. I would say the younger money in New York, and specifically a lot of the international buyers, actually prefer condominiums or condos over the co-ops. Now, co-ops is very, very difficult to even get accepted to the co-op boards. In New York City, you have very, very strict, I would say, rules, regulations, and fair housing laws. But the co-ops, it's almost as if they get like a free pass. If you want to buy an apartment in a co-op, the co-op board does not have to give you a reason to deny you access to purchasing in their building. And that is sort of what made condominiums very, very attractive to New York. So what you're looking at right here on the corner of East 51st Street and Fifth Avenue was one of the, I would say, most notable luxury condominium projects that set off this major trend for condos in New York City. Now, the Olympic Tower, again, if you go on Street Easy, you got to look at those views from that particular building. And the reason why it has amazing views is because it's right next to St. Patrick's Cathedral, and St. Patrick's Cathedral sits very, very low to the ground, and it is protected. This building can never be taken down, can never be sold, obviously because the Catholic Church owns it. So if you live in one of those apartments, you have an unobstructed view of all of Midtown Manhattan. You could see the Empire State Building, you could see the Chrysler Building, One Vanderbilt, and even on a very clear night, you could see all the way down to One World Trade Center. So when this building was constructed, a lot of New Yorkers were like, oh my God, I could never see myself living in Midtown Manhattan, right on Fifth Avenue, right next to Rockefeller Center. This is where people work. Who in their right mind would ever want to live here? Well, a lot of New Yorkers were caught off guard, right? A lot of the original New Yorkers wanted to live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, right? In a lot of those cooperatives. But I think society has changed fundamentally, and a lot of foreign buyers sort of set off this trend. And this trend has continued to progress because I think younger generations such as millennials and even Gen Z have different priorities. They want a building with a pool. They want a building with amazing views. They want to have all of these different amenities such as pet spas. They want to have pool tables, bowling alleys in their buildings. So I think the younger generations, being more social, have poured kerosene on this condominium fire. And that's why you're seeing all these notable buildings pop up all along Billionaires Row. Central Park Tower, 220 Central Park South, 432 Park Avenue, 157, 111 West 58th Street, West 57th Street rather, 53 West 53rd. All of these are condominiums with the best in-class amenities, everything you could think of, from Michelin star restaurants to saltwater pools. And that's what really set off the trend. You know, so if you're looking to buy real estate actually in New York and you want a deal and you don't care about having the pools, having the pet spas, having the gyms, having all this crazy stuff, if you go to the Upper East Side and you go to some of these cooperatives, particularly in Sutton Place, on a price per square foot basis, you could actually find yourself a pretty decent deal. Now, the buildings are older and they're not going to come with all the amenities, but if you're just looking for a nice place to stay in Manhattan, maybe it's even your second home, maybe it's a pied-à-terre, you're going to find a better deal in terms of the cost actually on the Upper East Side now, as it relates to a place like Tribeca, as it relates to a place like Lower Manhattan, or even Soho. So it's kind of interesting how the real estate market has really changed over the last few years. Hey, Sunshine NYC is here. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Jim and this is Gen Z don't care about driving. Yeah, I mean, I think big city living is very attractive to younger individuals, for sure. 100%. Hey, I see Western Mass Dave has joined us in the chat. What's up, Dave? God bless. I got to put a little bit of pep in my step to get you guys where you need to go. And that, my friends, is Lincoln Center. I know, sunshine after rain. I feel like I read your name 3 or 4 times, but I think it's important. Hey, Carson is here. What's up? Hey, Carson, by the way, how did your internship go? Speaking of sales in general, Carson is a good college student, very smart guy. I think he landed an awesome summer internship at a particular company, and I think that may be just concluding. So hopefully you made a lot of good contacts, grew your network, and please God, once you graduate, you can land a very lucrative account executive role. I'm sure you'll be able to do that. All right, we do have to go over the major events that are going to be coming up this week on the street. I think we've been having a lot of AI conversations, a lot of conversations about the Fed. Obviously, last week was Fed week. We got a 25 basis point rate hike from our good friend Jerome Powell. And obviously last week was important as well. We had Alphabet reporting. I think we also had Snapchat reporting as well. I think they got hammered, got clocked after the bell. Alphabet reported, Microsoft, and Meta. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to talk about that we never really got a chance to do. Now, one of the most important factors for me, if you're analyzing these companies, let's just sort of compare Meta, which is now, what Facebook and Instagram is called, to a platform like Twitter. Now, Meta reported a very good quarter. There was a massive pickup in advertising spend on the platform, and I think for good reason. And I think that's actually set to expand. Now, why might that be? Well, you got to look at the return on investment for your advertising spend. right? If I'm a small to medium-sized business, or even if I'm a big enterprise, and if I advertise on a platform like Twitter, which is actually now called X, and I advertise on a platform like Facebook or Instagram, or even just traditional Google search, I'm going to have my administration team run some internal analytics, or maybe this would even go to the data science team, to say, hey, which particular platform are we receiving the largest ROI, or return on investment, from our advertising dollars spent? And as of right now, Facebook and Instagram has the highest conversion rates across the board as you do a comparative analysis from Twitter, from advertising on Snapchat. It's not even close. So should small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and enterprise businesses continue to see higher conversion rates on Instagram and on Facebook, a lot of those advertising dollars are going to shift and continue to shift from the likes of Snapchat and the likes of X, formerly called Twitter, should they don't change something. Now, Elon Musk is obviously at the helm that owns Twitter, X. I think I'll just keep calling it Twitter. I don't like calling it X. The St. Thomas Church. So I don't know. Do we think that Elon and Twitter and the team over there are going to put the work in and increase the conversion rates of advertising spend on Twitter? I don't even know how they would do it. I think Twitter is just set up to be too text-based, and the majority of people are very visual, right? If you've ever been in sales or marketing, you know that visuals sell, right? There's a reason why, you know, the car dealerships try to get you in for a test drive. If you see it, if you're in it, if you're living in it, you could picture yourself and think past the sale if you're driving the car off the lot, right? There's higher conversion rates there, and I think that's very difficult to do on Twitter. So that was one of the biggest bright points, I would say, from Meta's earnings report. Not only is advertising revenue across the board on Facebook and Instagram up, but customers are seeing better and better conversion rates and better ROIs on their specific advertising dollar spend, which is great. Guys, check this out. Now, I think this is the University Club, and look at how gorgeous the crown moldings are on the ceiling.
Any help out, buddy? Should I get some eat? City.
Man, it is absolutely gorgeous in there. It almost looks like the Morgan Library, if anybody's... Moonstar says both platforms are overrun with ads. It's irritating. Well, I think that's probably why, right? Because there's really good conversion rate on it. That's potentially why you very seldom you'll see an ad on Twitter, but on I don't use Facebook. It's just, to me, it's just become too toxic. But you know, Facebook and Instagram, you see ads all the time because conversion rates are good. Hey, Glass of Beer 12, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Bob Smith says seems. All right, let me catch up on the chat here. Bob Smith says seems Meta targets demographic is pushing retirement age, maybe paying for past performance. Well, I think you can, like, I have an advertising account, right, for when I was at my old company, and you could do targeted ads based on demographic, based on everything, right? It gets very, very granular. So you could target whoever you want. So I don't know, I guess I don't understand the question. Are you saying like, I'm talking about like small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and enterprises advertising on these platforms to consumers. Now, if you want to target a specific niche or a specific demographic, or even a specific socioeconomic status, you could do that. I don't know if there's more bias one way or the other. I don't know. Everything in Miami says the conversation is due to pixeling and retargeting. This is the Trump Tower, by the way. Hey, traveling places, first time here and absolutely loving the views and insights. Very valuable information. Well, thank you for being here. That makes us really happy. We're happy you're here. And hopefully you had a really good weekend. We are 5th Avenue and West 57th Street. We are outside of the Trump Tower. But also, guys, for those new people here just joining us on Walks on Wall Street, the building to the right of us is very notable and very iconic. Let us explain. This is the brand new Tiffany & Co. building. Now, this has been here for, I mean, my God, forever. But LVMH, Moët Hennessy, which is one of the most valuable brands and valuable companies in the world, acquired Tiffany, and they just did a $500 million, you heard that right, a $500 million renovation on the Tiffany building right here. Now, it is absolutely gorgeous inside. I'm going to try to get some video on the inside, but I think there's no filming allowed, which I understand, right? It's a jewelry store, for security reasons, I get it. But I'm gonna try to get access to do a live stream inside the building because it's so cool. If you go all the way to the top of the building and you see this very big luminescent blue box at the top, that's actually the restaurant. So you can have breakfast at Tiffany's all the way at the top. And now LVMH owns not only this corner on 57th Street, which is the major Louis Vuitton building, they also own the other corner now too. NBA Alliance, did they have fires in there a few weeks ago? Yeah, that's another thing that was concerning. There was a massive fire that broke out in the basement. You would think after about $500 million worth of renovations, you wouldn't have a fire. Maybe there was some faulty electrical work. Hey, Bob Smith, is that conversion rate going to continue in the future? Meaning, seems Meta is becoming outdated. Surprised the competitor did not turn them into MySpace yet. Sorry for any confusion. No, you know, that's actually a good point. I do see that. But here's the thing. Mark Zuckerberg, whether you like the guy or not, right, I don't care about that. He's a master CEO, and I think he saw this coming. So let's first address the MySpace comment, because I think that's a very valid point. I think that's a very fair point, right? Could Facebook turn into MySpace? I think it's starting to, and that's why you had the acquisition of Instagram, right? If you haven't noticed, one of the key metrics that they're now reporting on in the earnings call is Reels. So Reels is something that they've been rolling out to do a direct competition with TikTok. I don't know why anybody would download that on their phone, but that's doing really well. You know, short form content that directly competes with TikTok. Meta is incorporating that into their content. It is called Reels. So Mark Zuckerberg is an innovator. He understands disruption, right? He is arguably one of the best tech CEOs to ever live. I still think Mark Benioff is probably number one, just because he's such a pioneer with software as a service. But I think it's a really good point, Bob, to be honest. These are some of the windows at Tiffany. I just wanted to show you guys an up close and personal look. I think they did a really good job on the display. It just looks like a classic, timeless building. The finishes, they don't look cheap. Nothing looks cheap here. Everything looks very sturdy, very nice. I think they did a really good job with the displays. I'm very excited to see what they do around the holidays. I think this is going to look great during the holidays. Let's check out this window. Anybody here in the chat a big jewelry connoisseur, jewelry fan? Maybe you collect watches or something like that. Any thoughts on the new renovations? This is the main door I should say the main entrance to Tiffany. Hey, Zozo Bob, what's up? Thank you for joining us. Now I got to point this out. This is a brand new building, did a full gut renovation here. Now you see the lights on in these windows? This is actually one of the most luxurious and expensive hotels in all Manhattan. This is called the Aman New York, right on 5th Avenue and West 57th Street. Room rates could run well over $1,500 a night. I've seen rooms there, this is just like an entry-level room. I've seen an entry-level room go for as high as $2,500 a night. I'm gonna take you guys directly under the major canopy, the awning. I believe it's a Japanese branded hotel, and there are exclusive destinations. So I think there's one obviously here in New York, Hong Kong, Singapore, like all the major business hubs, if you will. Yeah, DM's beautiful color scheme on the renovation. I agree, it's really beautiful. I think they did a great job. Now you can see here the Aman New York. Everything looks very luxurious. You notice they tried to do the best job they could to negate the scaffolding. But it is right here in the Crown Building. So check it out for yourself. I mean, if you're visiting New York and you want to stay in a very luxurious place, I would highly recommend the Aman New York. It is a gorgeous hotel here on Manhattan's 5th Avenue. Now, if you want something a little bit less luxurious, but I think a little bit more, you also get that luxury, but I think you get something a little bit more entertaining. I would advise to stay at the Park Hyatt, which is actually in 157. Now 157, which we're actually going to walk past on our way to Lincoln Center, was the first building to ever go up on New York City's Billionaires Row. And it was developed by Extel. And Extel, in my opinion, is one of the best real estate development companies in New York City. They set the tone for Billionaires Row, which is exactly what we're walking down right now. This one right here, it's called the Steinway Tower. And this is the skinniest residential apartment complex in the world. Has anybody heard of the gentleman, very nice guy, Eric Conover? Now, he recently just put out a tour of one of the penthouses at 111 West 57th Street. Stunning. Unreal. You got to check that out. And it'll give you a little bit of a glimpse into the world of Billionaires Row. So right here, 111 West 57th Street, the Steinway building. It is the skinniest apartment complex in the world. Crazy. What else do we got to cover tonight? Oh yeah, so last thing we got to cover, we'll bring this to Thursday. Thursday is August 8th. Can't believe it's already August. Before you know it, the summer will be over. I don't want to fast forward time too much. But Thursday, in my view, is the most important day of the week because we are going to hear from our good friend Tim Cook. Tim Cook is the CEO of Apple. Apple is reporting earnings on Thursday as well as Amazon. That, my friends, is going to give us an amazing look into not only the health of the U.S. economy and the U.S. consumer, but into the health of the Indian economy and the Chinese economy. Now, I'm very optimistic about Apple's earnings report for a few reasons. Now, here's one reason that I think is going to come up on the earnings call, and I want you guys to watch for this, okay? I think what would be best right now to prepare for this, if you go to apple.com/investorrelations. Again, that is apple.com/investorrelations. That's going to take you to the investor relations page of Apple. If you punch in your email address and your contact info, you will be scheduled to receive a Zoom link where you could listen in live on the earnings conference call. Now, if you think about what was discussed for the past 2 or 3 earnings reports, Tim Cook discussed specifically the strength of the US dollar. And a strong US dollar really ate into earnings severely because Apple does a lot of business abroad. So if you look at the DXY, ticker symbol DXY, which is the indice that essentially tracks the strength or the relative strength of the US dollar against a basket of foreign currencies, the dollar's actually been getting extremely weak. I think we're under 100 on the dollar, which is actually going to be great for corporate earnings, and I think Tim Cook is going to discuss that on the call Thursday. If you rewind to previous earnings quarters and earnings reports, Tim Cook said exclusively, he must have said it 3 or 4 times, that a strong US dollar impacted their bottom line in a very big way. Because if you're selling products and services that were built and essentially your headquarters is in the US and you're selling products and services in foreign currency, when you go to convert that foreign currency back to US dollars, if the dollar is very strong relative to those currencies, well, that foreign currency is going to be able to buy a lot less US dollars. So impacting gross margins, impacting earnings. So we could actually get a surprise boost to corporate earnings and gross margins, by the way, because the dollar's been getting hit. So I think that's what we need to watch out for on Thursday. Same thing with Amazon, but maybe less so. What I'm more interested in seeing from Amazon, ticker symbol AMZN, is how their AWS cloud computing unit is going. We had very good reports from Google's Google Cloud unit. If you think back to Q2 of last year, Google's cloud unit lost about $500 million. They made about $100 million this quarter. So the turn to profitability for Google Cloud is huge, and we'll see if Google Cloud can continue to rip business away from AWS. We'll see. If Michael Joseph is still in the chat, I'm interested to know what you have to say, because I know that you are an engineer and an architect. Maybe you can give us some insight on what your clients are choosing. Now here's the Park Hyatt, everybody. This is 157, the first building ever built on New York City's Billionaires Row. The first awning is the hotel. The second awning is the residences. So there you have Steinway Tower, 157. And then the tallest building is Central Park Tower, which is actually also developed by Extel and Gary Burnett. The building with the gold top is 220 Central Park South. And 220 Central Park South was developed by Vornado, Steve Ross Company. And that building is very notable because Ken Griffin of Citadel Securities bought 3 floors for, I think, just under $90 million. So very, very exclusive real estate here on Manhattan's Billionaires Row. And if you guys are interested in real estate development, I'm going to give you a book that you need to read. Particularly if you're interested in understanding assemblage as it relates to air rights in the city. Because it's not as easy as just buying a plot of land in Manhattan. and building as high and as tall and as skinny as you want. It's not the case. You have to have the air rights, and it can take years, if not decades, to accumulate these air rights very strategically from neighboring businesses, from neighboring, I should say, buildings. So if you want to know an interesting story about that, read a book called Billionaires Row. If you just type into Amazon, Billionaires Row, one of the most well-respected journalists from the Wall Street Journal real estate department wrote this book about Billionaires Row, how it was constructed. Does a deep dive into all of the notable developers, such as Extel, Vornado, and Maklo Properties. The only downside about Billionaires Row, it's extremely loud on 57th Street. I feel like I have to scream. I can't even hear myself think. All right, one quick shot. One quick shot of Central Park Tower, and then we got to make a beeline for Lincoln Center. Quick funny story about Central Park Tower, by the way. So Gary Burnett and Steve Ross actually met. They had a dinner, and they said, look, I want to build a super tall tower on Billionaires Row, and so do I. But your tower is going to partially obstruct my Central Park view, and your tower is going to partially obstruct my Midtown Manhattan view. So we have to come to some sort of a compromise here. Well, they did come to a compromise. So if you noticed, and maybe I'll actually cross the street so I can tell you guys about it. If you noticed, Central Park Tower is actually positioned a little bit to the right of 220 Central Park South. You can sort of see the gold top here. That is like that for a reason, okay? And that is so 220 Central Park South's Midtown Manhattan views could be preserved, and Central Park Tower's Central Park views could be preserved. So Gary Burnett and Steve Ross came to an agreement after some back and forth negotiations, and they agreed that they would do what's best for both of their buildings. Check out that book. It's one of the, I would say, the more exciting stories in the book. Let me check my battery here. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. Click the subscribe button if you're new, and share the show with your friends if you think it's interesting, if you think somebody would like it to join in on our conversation. Share it. Got nothing to lose. All right, you guys will be able to see what I'm talking about really well here in a moment. Okay, check it out. We are now coming up behind 220 Central Park South. Maybe we'll run into Ken Griffin. Maybe he'll offer us a job. Who knows? I think Walks on Wall Street, myself and you guys, would make pretty good quantitatives at the firm. All right, you can see it perfectly here. There is just a slight adjustment. 220 Central Park South is just off to the right, and Central Park Tower is just off to the left. I'll keep the camera pointed to the sky, and I'll walk down the street so you can have a little bit better perspective. I think here you'll be able to see it better. Now this big sort of tin wall that you guys see here, this is actually the private garage. So if you own an apartment in Central Park Tower and you want extreme privacy and exclusivity, This actually slides all the way open. You pull your car in and you go down into the parking garage. And then the elevator takes you directly to your unit. And this is the main gate at 220 Central Park South. Gorgeous, gorgeous building. Extremely well done. All right, let me check my battery here. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. I just find I find luxury real estate and all of these big developments so interesting. Look at the detail on the driveway. The attention to detail is just unbelievable in these buildings. But guys, I think we're gonna make it a little bit short of Lincoln Center tonight. We almost made it, but I had a really good time. I think it was a really, really fun stream. Amazing conversation we had tonight. I learned a lot. I want to thank all of you for coming out and spending your Sunday night with me. I know you guys could be really doing whatever you want. So for you to spend it here with us live with the team at Walks on Wall Street does mean a lot. I want to wish you all well for the week ahead. Hopefully you took the weekend to rest and relax so you were fully charged to hit it hard come Monday morning. We will be live tomorrow at 8:30 to break down all the notable events that happened throughout the day. Hopefully we will be streaming from the Upper West Side near the Dakota Apartments. This way we'll be able to get the Lincoln Center in. But until then, guys, have a great one. If you like the stream, feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. And Justin S., Sally, Tim Thompson, Victor Alfonso, FHL, thank you so much. Sally, thanks for joining us. Tech Guy, Western Mass, Dave, Sunshine After Rain, Austin City Limits, Cayenne Pacific, NJB, Wendy England, Michael Joseph, NBA Elias, UniJ23, DC322, Joseph Hardaway, RKR8, thank you so much. Sherry Rodrigo, Wendy England, Michelle K, Hal T16, all of our moderators, Elizabeth Gill, Muhammad, thank you so much. Narcos, Spencer, Brian, Abby1, Gary Carpenter. There's always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. Guys, good luck in anything you do next week. Make sure you do it with the best.